alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, and this episode is a special episode of Alive After Reading. I have two guests with me, as opposed to the usual one, Charles Breakfield and Rox Burkey. Welcome to the show.
Thank
you, Tim.
So you two are co-authors, are you not?
That's correct. Yeah.
So what sort of stuff do you write as a team there?
So actually, we're techno-thriller writers. Technology in the today's world. We both work in full time in the technology industry, and so we get to see a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly, to use a trade phrase, of what's going on in the technical world, and it gives us a fascinating jumpstart for topics that we could exploit. So. We're primarily storytellers, but the science fact that gets in into the story gives it that extra flavor of, this is really real. We've actually had a couple people saying, like OMG, really? This can't be true. And I'm like, yes, sweetheart, yes it is.
Terrifying, but true.
Correct, yes.
Exactly. We get tagged often that we do science fiction, and it really isn't. It's science fact.
Yeah, I've never really vied for that position with my books. I'm much more of even when I've written sci-fi, it's much more far-flung and nowhere near the science fact realm. So yeah, but I think we'll get along. That sounds like an interesting an interesting genre to work in for sure. It's almost like I know Tom Clancy's work was called technothrillers, so that's getting on a little long in the tooth now. It seems like, yeah.
We get compared to his work and a few other of the powerful authors that we seem to be grouped with in people's minds. So it's good to be grouped with the people that we like to write the same kind of things that they do.
Cool. And it sounds like, having read the brief description of your book, is this your latest book that the press release was for? Could you remind people the title, I think?
Yeah, no, it is. I think you got the title for The Flower Enigma. Was that the one that you received the press release for, which, to be quite honest with you, is kind of a deviation from our normal. So we wrote 12 novels in the techno-thriller arena, called the Enigma series, but we got with a group of folks and they wanted us to do a cozy mystery.
I was going to say, it looked like a cozy and sounded like a cozy, so I was surprised when you said techno-thriller. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really fun exercise, because where it started was the lead instigator, Caleb, sent through this picture. You'll like this story. He sent through a picture of a boat on the shore, and it's like, he goes, which one of you guys, you folks, can go ahead and write a short story about this, and we'll aggregate it and turn it into an anthology of short stories for your interpretation of what this boat was like in your particular story. We had so much fun that one of we're called the underground authors in this particular group. One of the underground authors said, what would be even cooler is if we could collaborate and do a book series. Everybody take their particular genre and let's focus. And then all of a sudden the idea starts spilling out. We're having all kinds of fun. And they said, here's a city here. Let's put it in Texas. Yeah. We'll put it in Texas. Magnolia Bluff Crime Series is what what we're working on right now.
Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles.
I'm sorry. All right. So, Roxanne, can you pick it up from here since I got the title wrong? Jeez.
Well, so we created the small town in Texas called Magnolia Bluff, and it's right in the middle of the Texas Hill Country. And if you've never been to the Texas Hill Country, it's got the rolling hills, it's got the wineries, it's got, lots of fun, lots of hiking. But, as one of the authors in this series has said, people are just dying to get into that graveyard. So it is really focused on mystery and crime. Cozy is the preferred. But there are lots of different genres that are actually occurring here. Every author has a book, a total, complete, end-to-end book. They are not related. It's not like you have to read them in order. Though we do have the ability to use someone else's characters, as long as we don't kill them. I nearly made the mistake and crippled us because I tried to kill somebody that I never should have tried to kill, but we didn't. We took it out.
Yeah. Now, we have the other problem where, like, I want to use this character. They went, Charles, I've already killed that person. Don't use him. Let me give you somebody else. So I was like, so we got in that cadence of, okay, ask before you start building your story with somebody, because they may not be there when you're ready to pull that particular character in.
That's fascinating. So it's a shared world, it sounds like, basically. That's what we call it in the science fiction fantasy realm, anyway.
Exactly. No, it is a shared world. So we all created this world. We created this town. We have a town square. We have a reservoir nearby. We even have a wonderful coffee house. You want good coffee, you can go to this place and get some great coffee.
Yeah, we even put together a map of the towns so that we could be able to call it up when people said, "Okay, I need to use this. Where's the hardware store? Oh, it's over here. Got it."
So, I mean, you're saying is this a small town then in the story world?
Oh, yeah.
How many people?
Oh, it's maybe 10,000.
Oh, now you're speaking my language. I live in a town of 10,000 people.
Well, and we actually have a sign that says, it's like 8,500 plus 12 authors going into the city.
Nice. That's a good tagline, actually. I mean, not that you could be using it because every story's different and standalone.
No, but it is kind of fun because originally the idea came from, how historical romances often group authors together because they all write of the same time period and they're Duke and Duchess of whatever, or, fooling around with the Earl and the whatever. I mean, it's, it gets a little, but we hadn't seen anything like that from a crime or a mystery perspective. And so that's kind of how it started. It's like, nobody's done this before. Let's just give it a try. So today there are 6 books that are in the series that are effectively ready to rock and roll. They're all different. We happen to be book number
5
in the series.
Oh, that's cool. So you're right in the middle.
Yeah.
And do you have is there like a group launch plan around these? I'm just curious. So we actually
got on a podcast. Yeah, we got on a podcast 3 at a time. So the first 3 books, next 3 books, and so forth, to kind of group 3 at a time launches and run a podcast for that. It's really fun.
Yeah. One of the reasons for having just 3 at a time, because you don't want 10 overachievers on the same mic. I'm sorry. There it is.
Fair enough. No, I mean, sometimes, and I will say, definitely, sometimes 2 people is a lot on one mic. Having had some guests that definitely filled up the space, let me say. And it was great. Those were fun episodes. I'm thinking of some specific ones that I could name drop, but never mind. This is by no means an indictment of them. This is actually a compliment, because I talk a lot. And when I'm getting edged out, well, that's how the show should be sometimes.
Just elbow your way back in. Okay, well, we get it.
I'm too polite for that. I just did it, but I'm generally more polite.
Okay.
But it is a fun series. It's so much fun that right after the delivery of book number 2, everybody said, "Do you want to do a second series? We'll just do next year's series. Sign up now."
Wow.
Yeah, so the cadence has really kind of gotten into a rhythm. It's like, okay, I'm using this character. And we had somebody who comes behind us. She said, "Here's what I want to do with your character. Is that okay?" And she sent us a snippet of the of a piece out of her book, and I'm like, "This is so cool. I can't. Wow, Yeah, please. I can't wait to see it in print.
Well, awesome. So, I mean, I could go down the whole route of asking you about your process as collaborators, but it sounds like you guys have really gone off the deep end. You two have really gone off the deep end because you don't just collaborate with each other; you collaborate with a bunch of other people on this series, and that's awesome. That's fascinating. It reminds me a little bit of the RPGs that I still play and run. And I enjoy a lot because those are very much shared experiences. I don't have a lot of experience with shared worlds beyond that, but yeah, it sounds like it just sounds super exciting. So yeah, excellent. I don't know if I can add anything else to that particular
well, no, it's
thread.
Fun. Tim, we're technologists by profession.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's how we met originally, was because I ended up hiring him in the company I worked for as the site manager. And because we are so much into technology, we keep track of things on spreadsheets. We electronically transfer things. We keep things in 4 places because we don't trust anybody.
Yeah. No, that kind of artistic paranoia is really helpful, actually. I know I have at least 4 locations actually for all my stuff now because I back up everything to the hard drive, backup drives, and then I have multiple computers, each of them saving the same files over an internet connection, or over a shared folder. It's pretty tough for me to lose anything now unless I deliberately delete it, which I never do, frankly. Unless when I cut stuff from one of my books, I don't know how it is with you, but when I cut stuff from one of my books, I just put it in another folder or another document. I never actually delete a whole chapter. Does that ring true to either of you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we try to keep. I did that today. We're working on one of our rework on our second edition for one of our books. I sent it to her. I said, "Here, we need this in 2 places." After I put it in 2 places, so it's just it's that particular comfort level to make sure that because version control when you're in, you get two hands on it, and then. Sometimes that's a bit problematic because then the editor is like, okay, I'm ready to start look at this. The clean eye reader or the beta readers, they'll send back their information. So, version control gets to be problematic rather quickly.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I mean, it can be pretty honestly, it can be challenging to keep the versioning consistent even with one author. So with 2, and then handing it back and forth, I assume. I mean, I guess I am kind of curious about that process. Does you just want it because you have an editor who's a third person? What is the process like? I guess I was trying to eschew that question, but I guess we have to come back to it because it's always going to be different. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's coined literary ping pong or literary badminton by Mr. Breakfield. However, what we do is we kind of outline and rough out how we want a story to go. And then we divide up the chapters, and each of us takes one and reads that part of the story, and then we exchange them. And then I go through, and I tend to be the one who does kind of the evening of the voice. So at the end, it sounds like it's one voice. If we send it to the first line editor and she comes back and says, "Who wrote this chapter?" we can honestly say yes, because that means she can't tell.
Yes. All right. I mean, that's really cool, because consistent voice, I mean, I don't think the voice needs to be completely consistent in a story, but it has to make sense, all make sense and fit together.
Well, it can't be a distraction to the reader. That's what
absolutely.
We're trying to avoid. Yeah. So it's not so much, it has to be sound like it can't, the reader can't see. There's 2 people writing this. I can tell because of the styles are different. It's like that is what we spend a lot of time making sure the wordsmithing, the character smithing, that we don't let that particular flavor get away from the story. So the reader is distracted, saying, give me the change. What happened here? We want to make sure we don't do that.
Yeah, anything that pulls the reader out of the story, right? I mean, that's what you got to iron out, regardless of how many people are collaborating on a project.
Exactly.
But you brought up a good point, Tim, a few minutes ago when you said you never delete anything from your files. But when you delete a chapter, which we have done before, and we've done it for reasons like we figured out it didn't belong in the story. We figured out it didn't contribute to the story. But it was still very well written. And so we tend to save those, and that becomes part of the material for some short stories that we have launched, which is the backstory. So I think we're kind of like you in that regard. We don't throw away something that's well done. We just save it for another point in time.
Right. Yeah. One of my big fantasy novels, one of the ones that's better known than most of the others at this point, Demon Scroll. I actually went to press with that there originally because I'm independently publishing it, right? And I originally published it with a chapter and a half that just got removed from the book eventually as the first chapter because I didn't realize it just didn't make sense the way I laid it out. My friend Reinhard Suarez is an editor, and he actually helped me. He read the beginning. He's like, yeah, this is probably why this book is not taking off so well. This beginning part isn't the main character, and we don't get enough time with the main character before we jump back to these characters from the original prologue, and it's but now the book is much more solid because I just we took most of those scenes out, but wove in the information that they conveyed anyway into later stuff. So
that's awesome, and we think we've gotten better with time as well, right? We especially since most of our stories are technology based. We're doing second editions on them because one, we've learned a lot in 10 years. And two, some of the terminology has changed.
Yeah.
We want to be part of the contemporary flow.
That's interesting. So to be cutting edge, you kind of have to update the books.
Well, to be fair, we first got started writing technical manuals. And as soon as we got one done, it was out of date. If you've ever seen a technical manual, it's like a third, fourth, fifth, the 51st edition. That's because they can't keep it current because things keep changing. So we got dissatisfied, or okay, all right, I did. All right. I grabbed up my marbles, stomped off, and said, I'm not doing this anymore. The technical manual routine is nonsense. And then a couple of months later, she pops up and says, new deal. How about we write fiction with technical facts baked into them? Okay, maybe that's kind of tell me more. I'm listening. I mean, you're selling here. I mean, you're doing the pitch, and she goes, I have to admit, she got me with a clincher. She says, plus Charles, because this is fiction, we can whack people and not go to jail. So I went, I've got several candidates in mind. When can we start? So that's how I got lured back in, and I have to admit I have no regrets at this point. Keep them coming.
So you say you were lured back in. Had you written fiction before?
Not fiction. We've been doing books for Auerbach, technical manuals.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm not going to do this anymore because they're out of date. And I'm like,
absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
I
was just curious if you.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on. I was just curious. Had either of you written a book before you started collaborating? A fiction book,
Not fiction, but we had written nonfiction and white papers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, interesting. So, how was your first experience writing fiction? Do you remember it well? Because, I started writing when I was quite young, and probably the listeners of this show are tired of hearing that story. But I started writing when I was a teenager. But a lot, and I basically have only ever written fiction. I was an English major, so I wrote some nonfiction in college, but that was about it.
Well, we kind of came at it at a different direction, Tim, because as technology consultants, our companies were scrambling us to go do analysis for other organizations, other government entities. Here, come in here, tell me what's wrong. That was what that's what we were doing, and so and part of that deliverable was a white paper. Here's what we see. Here's what we found that's wrong. Here's what you need to fix. Here's what we recommend. So we're well grounded in that kind of a approach. It's a little bit dull for most people's taste, unless of course your company's the one that's going down the toilet. So Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we would do, and so it was a natural progression for us to say, okay, all right, technical books, fine. Here's an overarching methodology, and then, okay, let's be storytellers with a message we want to deliver on a particular technical topic, baked in with technical facts. They're like, oh, this is how this kind of a threat occurs.
Absolutely. Okay, that's fascinating in its own right. I mean, as a job, obviously, you say these papers would be less exciting to read than, say, a book of fiction, probably for most people. But yeah, it sounds like that's very interesting work. Honestly, I think, I mean, that there's so much you're doing there. It's almost like you're detectives, right? You're trying to figure out what went wrong. It's like a cross between a pathologist and an insurance inspector or something.
Yeah. And what's funny is I actually did and I still can't tell who this government agency that I went in to do their analysis for. They came in and said, "What is wrong with our organization?" And when I got finished, I said, "Here's the white paper," and I gave it to the deputy director, and I think it was one other person in the room, and their jaws dropped. And I said, "Now, what I want to be able to do," they said, "This is really were that bad?" I said, "I didn't say bad. I just said this is what you need to work on. Now, I want your permission for me to go ahead and publish this as a white paper for this company we're writing this." No, you can't. We forbid it.
Wow.
But I can change the name. Everybody that we know will see who this is based on the flaws that you're articulating. So no, please don't. I couldn't even give it to the people who worked there. It was like, wow, yeah,
that's real world espionage material right there.
Well, yeah, it's don't pull the covers back too far because you're not gonna like what you see.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Now that's an interesting job for sure. Definitely. I mean, and scary, honestly, because you're kind of digging into things that have to remain. I've only signed NDAs that I wrote myself. I'm not a guy who's had to deal with a lot of secrets in my life.
Well, yeah, I got NDAs with a lot of different people, and the one that really cracked me up was this bank. I can't tell you the name of that bank. That they were coming. They said, "Come in here and tell us what we need to be able to do." I was astonished. They were opening one branch a month, going from west to east, and they had to put telephony gear into the site, but they wouldn't buy anything that was new. They only bought what they could buy, what they already knew how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they were buying enough eBay. And I'm like,
oh man,
state-of-the-art technology right off of eBay.
Straight off of eBay, like my headphones, fresh from their Chinese manufacturer.
So we have seen some rather peculiar business models that I wouldn't recommend, but I have to admit they do work. Okay, so that's an upvote for eBay, I guess. To use modern parlance. No. So, Rox, we learned. I just learned a bunch about Charles' background, and yours is similar. Is that true?
It is similar. So we've worked for different technology companies. My focus has been primarily on user acceptance testing for different software programs, customer experience, workforce experience. That's kind of where I go. And when I analyze companies, it's more about how are your end customers going to feel, or how are your workforce going to behave in this environment? How fast are they going to go look for another job if they're not happy with what your tools are that you're providing to them? So that's kind of been where my focus has been.
Interesting. I as somebody who just recently entered the workforce as a non-writer for the first time, I found it fascinating that I am already, like, this job, I've only been doing it for 2 days as of this recording, and I already feel like the job has really shaped how I'm looking at things. It's very weird. Like, it feels, I mean, and it's a part-time job, but I'm like, now I know what these letters mean. I just thought there was a jumble of letters on this package, and now I know what they're for. And it's just this weird, like, huh?
The acronyms of that.
Yeah.
Every industry has their own acronyms, and the technology marketplace, and they're the worst, which is why we actually on our website, we actually have a specialized terms download that people can get.
And our techno thrillers, Tim, we saw early on that people looking from the outside in thought that we were speaking in tongues because we're always using acronyms and the things that don't mean anything except to people inside the business. So we started taking that and stretching it to the point of absurdity. So one of our specialized characters, and I'll go ahead and give you an example of how we like to poke fun at ourselves as technologists. There's a supercomputer, AI enhanced, that's bordering on self-aware and self-actualized. His name is Ichabod. And Ichabod is actually an acronym for Immersive Collaborative Associative Binary Override of Deterministic Systems. And so when you start having to, that kind of stuff spelled out in a book, you start using the shorthand, which is why technology does that, because it's always got the same kind of approach. We even had one that we did with called Pop-Tarts for one of the programming languages that we thought was kind of cute and funny. So we take that seriousness that we have inside the technology, and we poke fun at it a little bit with the
That's good to hear, because I wouldn't want to think that any story, that every story needs humor, but it doesn't hurt to have some kind of jokes, even if they're in jokes at some point or other, some kind of way just to enter, because at the end of the day, it's entertainment. The fiction is entertainment on a large level. So yeah, it's important to make sure to entertain people while you're writing their entertainment.
Yeah, and as once a great philosopher once said, never take life too seriously because you never get out of it alive.
Oh, absolutely. And one last thing, I wanted to add one more thing about the facts of entertainment, because that's where I really do specialize. I'm so bored so easily, right? I've been, for years, I would just throw books down. I've gotten better about this lately, but I'd be like, this book isn't doing it for me. I wouldn't even know why, and I'd just throw it down when I was reading it, and I'm done, and I never go back. And lately I figured it out. It's because, maybe it was the English degree, maybe it was just the fact that I'm so easily turned off by sentence level stuff that it's just, if a sentence isn't fun to me, I can tell now. And if too many of those happen all together, well, I'm done. And fun doesn't have to always be like, haha, I'm laughing. It can be anything. It can be any of those desirable moments in a book, right? And it can be a scary moment. It could be a thrilling or action-packed thing. It could be any of the stuff that makes a book appealing. But if I'm not getting the appeal, I'm out fast. know?
Yeah, we took that concept. Ichabod is our supercomputer, and he's evolved throughout the 12 books. And the fun part about him is by book number 5, by book number 4, he's basically started synthesizing his own voice. By book number 5, he wants to know how to be funny. And so there's these little snippets throughout of course, it's a very serious exercise about supercomputers predicting the future and exploiting it. But in the snippets in between the story, it's like, okay, Dr. Cripp, and he'll try a joke on his programmer to see, is this funny? Why is this funny? And try to understand what is funny. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it gives you that juxtaposition. Like, this is deadly serious. Here's somebody running to control the world future and commodity markets and financial gain. But here's a supercomputer trying to learn how to be funny. That juxtaposition that really worked in that particular novel.
That sounds extraordinarily fun and powerful, actually, as a theme. Even that probably. That really would torque up my interest in a story, honestly. Maybe I'll have to check that one out. What was the title of that one?
The Enigma's Stolen.
Okay. Well, and I think that's the note to go out on, because we're about out of time. But it's been great talking to both of you. definitely let people know where they can find you and your work. And thanks for being on the show.
Well, Tim, thank you. I mean, folks can find us at enigmaseries.com. Samples of all of our books, samples of the audio book, some downloads of some chapters, and free stuff. We do free stuff too.
Of course. I mean, you kind of have to these days too, honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, excellent. As for this podcast, you can find us at mentalcellarpublications.com or timniederreiter.com, and you can find all my books on amazon.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay safe out there. And remember that sometimes letters that you thought were meaningless were actually pretty important, and you should pay more attention. So that's one to grow on, people. Take it easy, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Tim. Get some rest. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That tears it.